Okay, we'll get started. Welcome along to today's webinar, everyone. Future-proofing your workforce, AI mindset and skills development in partnership with Connect 3. In a second, I'll introduce our guest speaker, Jordan Kay. But first of all, I'll just take you through some of the housekeeping. My name is Alistair Gillen. I am part of Skills Development Scotland's Growth and Inward Investment team, and delighted that we are running this webinar today in partnership with Connect 3. As you can see on the slide right now, we'll be recording today's session. That will be posted on the Employer Hub, Skills Development Scotland's website, supporting businesses, for people to refer back to if you wish to share with any colleagues that's not managed to make it along today. As you can see that your camera is off as well as microphone. That's just to ensure that we're able to flow through today's webinar. However, there will be an opportunity at the end when we will invite questions. That Jordan will happy for the microphones to come off and hopefully get a wee bit of discussion. However, if you have any questions while the webinar is in full flow, you'll see at the top of your screen there's a Q&A function. If you wish to post any questions on there at any point, between myself and the colleagues, we'll be monitoring them, the questions coming through, and make sure that Jordan is able to see them. And hopefully we'll get round to answering those questions. But as I said, we will we'll be putting the microphones on and giving you the opportunity to get some discussion later. Any resources, slides, we'll make sure that we can share them with you after the webinar, and at some point following the webinar we'll also be circulating a short feedback survey. If you could take the time to complete that for us, that would be greatly appreciated. So on to the actual session itself. I'd like to pass you on to Jordan Kay, who is the Head of Innovation and Growth at Connect 3. And when you'd signed up, you would have seen Jordan's bio, but just a quick recap that Jordan is passionate about entrepreneurship, business, innovation and performance. An entrepreneur since the age of 16. He's had over 20 years experience building, operating and supporting businesses. I'd like to hand you over to Jordan now. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Alistair. Appreciate that. I'll just share my screen here. Hi everyone. As Alistair said, just a wee bit about myself. So just to give a wee bit of a background as to why I'm talking about AI and why I think it's a real benefit to organisations is ultimately I've always been into creativity, trends, tech and ultimately building things really from the age of 15, and I've had little small businesses when I was sort of 16, but actually after I graduated university I developed my first business. And I was lucky enough, so that was in the brand experience, developed into a brand experience agency, at the age of 22. And then 10 years later, I was lucky enough to sell that. But purely it was, why I was able to do that was actually making it operationally efficient, which is where AI, I think, really comes into play. And I think it's always, my mindset is also a wee bit about like, how can we look at things and do them a wee bit differently? And sometimes when we're in the business world, we drive innovation at the very start, but after a certain period of time, that seems to stop. And we're quite lucky with AI at the moment that there is, it's really boosting innovation and speeding things up. Some could argue at a very, maybe too fast a pace. But yeah, I've worked internally inside organisations, helped them scale and grow, and currently at the moment I am working as the Head of Innovation and Growth at Connect 3. So underneath that role there, I oversee our full offering with our consultants. So we look at business strategy and goal setting, product and service development, scale up and innovation programs as well. So not just for senior leadership teams or directly within organisations. We work with organisations across the board in a mixed programs. and probably you might be able to see from some of the things I touched on before, is all about that entrepreneurial mindset and critical thinking. And for me, the skills gap that is in the workplace at the moment for critical thinkers and building out creativity, problem solving, ideation, there's a bit of a gap there already. And with using AI, I feel that those that have that critical mindset can definitely get the best out of AI. So there's a wee bit of developing our people about critical thinking when we're using this new technology as well. And most recently, over the last 6 months, we've developed our AI in the workplace offering. So currently at the moment, we're working with organizations of all different sizes, looking at the opportunities that AI can bring into the workplace. And also then for those that are on a bit of a later journey, is actually we've identified what the tools are, and maybe we're looking at custom solutions here. So hopefully for what I'm going to share today can give a wee bit of that journey, and you can start to see what the possibilities could be for using AI within your organization. But one thing as well, I'd just like to make pretty clear, is I love just demystifying business and organization and all the talk that comes with it. I just like to make things really simple. So hopefully as well, this webinar will be break down what really ultimately AI is, really simply, and where the opportunities are, but also touching on where the potential risks are as well. So we, through this sort of, I've been playing with AI for the last, and I use the word play because I really don't think you can really see what the opportunities are without the play piece. And I think a lot of organizations aren't doing that, but I've been playing with AI for the last probably about 2.5 years now. Originally just more doing it as a wee bit on the side from my own sort of businesses I've been exploring, or alternatively as well looking at it more internally and operationally. And I kept a lot of it to myself and was just doing that play and discover. But I soon started to realize the possibility that it could have, and actually the impact it could have within organizations. So we've developed at Connect 3 a bit of a 3-step approach here, which is this play and discover. I really believe that how can we know what the opportunities are or what the threats are or what the risks are unless we start playing with some of these tools, and time can be a big factor with not playing with the tools. But if one thing I would take away for today is just get playing with something, playing with a tool that you can really start to learn and start to see what it can do, and again for those inside your organization to encourage that too. So in this play and discovery phase, what we really look at is just introduction to AI, understanding the basics, what governance we maybe have to have behind that as well, because people are using they are using AI, they are using AI tools within the workplace, and it really surprises me how we don't have a simple policy in place or what tools, etc., that you can or cannot use from an organization level. So another key thing to take away is people are using it. So let's think about the governance we need to have behind that as an organization as well. We also just look at the benefits for the departments, what mindset and skills are required, and then ultimately giving a nice platform and a place for playing with third-party applications. And then really what we want to do is take that onto the next level, where we look at really what's your sort of AI plan, what's your strategy, your goal, your vision for using AI within the workplace, because we can actually get too far ahead of ourselves, and with lots of tech stacks that are out there, we can end up with 30 different AI applications because there's different applications coming out all the time, when really what we need to do is take a little step back and really analyze and strategically think, what is the difference this is going to make to my organization? How is it going to affect our people? And what could this look like moving forward? So this strategy and implementation phase is super important. And then probably then moving on to that third phase that we like to look at is, okay, we've done a bit of play and discovery. We know how we want to take this moving forward. So do we need to bring others on the journey? Do we need a bit of mentoring and coaching that needs to maybe necessarily happen within the workplace? Or alternatively, do we need to upskill and train others within the organization? Or do we have to maybe look at sort of deeper AI consultancy relationships where we actually can look at creating custom AI agents or custom solutions that embed AI in the background that can really automate a lot of the work that you do. So that's a wee bit just about what we do. What we'll sort of cover today is basically what Gen AI is, from a real basics, what the benefits are, why people aren't using it, and why organizations should be using it more. How we're using it at Connect 3. I think it's also great to see use cases, and I can talk a wee bit about how other organizations that we're working with as well are using it. And then ultimately we've got a wee bit of an action plan at the end, so you can explore how a little takeaway of basically how you could start using AI at work. We've also created a community where you have a QR code where you can sign into, and a toolkit. So we've partnered up with or in collaboration, with the Scottish AI Alliance, and we've done roundtables, etc., with them, and we've created our own toolkit, but we have some of their resources and things in there as well, which is a nice toolkit to have, and if you're looking to upskill yourself more in AI. So a wee bit less about me and Connect 3 and more about really what is AI. So this really is just probably the most technical it's going to get. And I'm going to try and simplify it to some extent. But if we're looking at probably mostly in most organizations at the moment, we'll be looking at large language models, LLMs, that you may have heard. So whether that's your ChatGPT, whether that's Copilot, Gemini, etc., depending on what platforms you use. So really, generative AI predictions are typically made using machine learning algorithms that analyze historic data to identify patterns and trends. These algorithms can then use this information to make informed predictions about future events. If we were really simplifying that down, that I tried to explain this is, if we think about predictive text, it's exactly that really from when we're looking at large language models. You see sometimes when you write a message, whether that's in WhatsApp or whether that's in a text message, if you still send text messages these days, that when you start typing something, it automatically presumes as to what you're going to say. We've seen that for probably the last 5 years in most of our mobile applications, and you'll now probably start to see that, a wee bit more with our emails, etc. as well. And that's ultimately what it's doing. It's just predicting what is next. So based on what I know about you and your data, what is going to be the outcome? What is going to be next? So if we use this as an example, a nice simple thing to use is, say, like writing a blog, right? Marketing was one of the big things that was touched on for when AI first came out. Is that how it's going to make a big impact to marketing world? So we can all kind of relate to marketing in some extent, and maybe it's a part of our jobs, or we know how it works. So looking at marketing, if we were writing a blog post, so I would have my prompt input. Our prompt is super important. We always need to think about the prompt, because it's the exact same way as writing a brief to somebody or communicating and asking someone what to do. Just think of it that way. If we give them rubbish information, or we do give them very little information, then actually what they're going to come back with isn't that great. Just when you're crafting a prompt, is to think about that to think as if you were speaking to somebody or asking somebody a question. You want to give them as much as possible. So prompt input, then we go to data processing. So it processes that data. It goes through these training models like I talked about. So that might be ChatGPT, Gemini, Anthropic have Claude if people like more creative writing. There's lots out there, but there's generally the sort of top 5 hitters that are there. There's DeepSeek that's just came out as well through that was released in China. And what that'll then do is that'll then generate the content that you'd have here, and then it'll filter that. So it'll draft it, it'll clarify it, it'll just check it for some quality, which we don't see, by the way. And then what it'll do is it'll then output the delivery. So then you've got your final draft of what that blog post is. And at this point, I would say this is super key as well, is that what we have is then given that feedback. So you may have seen, if people have been using AI in certain ways, as you may have put in a bit of a prompt, it comes back and you say, that's not really what I wanted, that wasn't really that great. So you start reiterating it, you're asking it, giving it more feedback, giving it more things, getting it to look some different places, and maybe uploading different files, etc. And then it can start to amend this, and it then gives us an end result. So just think about in this stage here, when we are using more text-based generative AI tools, is that our prompt is super important. And we've got a bit of training and additional training on this, and there's lots of resources out there. One thing I would say about the prompt piece, though, is AI has advanced quite a lot over the last probably 6 months as well. The prompt engineering that you need to do doesn't need to be as sophisticated as what you maybe had to do in the past. However, just like if you were asking someone to do something, just really take a bit of a step back and think, what is it I'm really looking for them to do? So in this case, what am I really looking for out of this blog post? And what maybe information does, if this was an individual, does that individual need? But in this case, it's technology. And then again, I think we're all human, so we can all say that sometimes we just don't know what we want, and we might ask someone for something or technology for something, and actually what it outputs is not what we wanted. That's fine. Like that's human behavior. We don't actually know sometimes what we're looking for. So again, that's where we can just, oh, what you've given me back actually isn't what I'm looking for. What I'm looking for is X, Y, and Z. So there's the potential of automation with AI in certain use cases, but there has to be that human element all the way through. So you will probably have to give feedback, especially if it's a lot more complex as well. And then just moving more on to sort of key areas of using AI, specifically in the workplace as well. As I say, talking about text generation, so they're more about large language models, where we can create original text based on prompts. So, for example, this could be using content creation, like this sort of blog post that I'd mentioned before. We can look at customer support. So that may well be that we could have customer support internally in the organization. So an organization I'm working with just now, their HR department gets lots of similar questions that can be found within their onboarding documents, within policies, within their intranet. But the reality is we're living in a fast-paced world, and people want to know the question to their answer really quickly. So at the moment, they send that question in via email, someone responds back to it, and it's the same stuff maybe over and over again. Now, what about if now you could create an AI agent that has all of your resources, has all of your data, so that's your data, that's not data from around the world or from around the web, sorry. So that has my policies, all the top questions that are asked. It has my onboarding documents, all my HR material that is sat, for example, on my SharePoint or in my Google Drive. Then if I create an agent, I can start to ask that questions just like you would have in customer support if you were purchasing something from a retailer, and we can do that internally now as well, which again frees up people's time, and people can get questions at any time of the day as well that they might have. So it's really interesting looking at that. Product descriptions, product development, it's great to use, and again that creative writing piece as well, which is really interesting. And some people may say what it's coming back with isn't that great, and but for specifically, I think it's an interesting area for small businesses. Is actually these are key things that they need additional people to do, and actually AI might be able to support you in that field. Then we have image generation, so that can be about generating images that look realistic. So again, all of this deck actually is fully created with using AI, and I created this 6 months ago. So even the technology has moved on a bit more. But this prompt here, for example, was a yellow digger on a construction site in London, and it generated me it. So it's a wee bit warped, and actually now if I was to do the same, the quality would be so much better. But where this probably comes into real play is in like advertising and marketing. Maybe we can speed up. We don't have to go on site. So again, from a sustainability side, maybe we don't have to have as much travel. Maybe we can give prototypes very quickly, so that we can get the idea. We could maybe have an MVP. We could have just that idea that allows us to pick out if it's exactly for us or not, and do that quite quickly. So big in the advertising and marketing world for image generation. We've then got fashion and retail as well. We've got architecture and real estate. So again, maybe even with architectural drawings, I'm working with a few organizations exploring this as well, about potentially creating some architectural drawings based on historic drawings, and what this could look like for X floor plans or constraints. And again, that might not be the final article, but it gives you something to play with and a bit of a starting block. And then I think what's really interesting as well is in medical imaging. So if we look in the medical world, like AI, this may well be, AI might have its biggest effect on us and humanity is actually in medicine, where they're already detecting early signs of breast cancer. And I recently heard a podcast. I haven't looked into it fully, so don't take me fully on this, but we could get to a world where we can specifically detect cancer, for example, early on me, but then I can then have AI generate me a vaccine specific to my cancer, specific to my DNA, that is then going to help that cancer and me, and essentially make me cancer free. So I think that in the medical world, AI generally is going to have a massive play and is going to affect us. But more in the business sense, when looking at this, we've got other areas that we've got video generation. So looking at creating unique videos. This is going to be a really interesting space over the next couple of years, especially for creatives that are potentially creating video. Right now, if I had the idea, I could go and create a short movie. I've never been able to do that before, but I could go and do that now, and that's quite exciting for some. And again, it maybe allows you to come up with concepts and ideas quicker. But where it's quite interesting more for internally is about like training and onboarding. So I'll show you a little video where we could use that. International comms, so we don't have to have it as one singular language. It could be changed to different languages. We've got the animation and movies like I talked about. And then again, product demos. So we all like to see something visually. Maybe before it was on paper, or I would have to get a designer, etc., to design something. But now actually I could draw something on paper and take it into a AI image generator. It'll generate the image for me and look, half decent. And then I could take that and run that through an AI video editor, and it'll bring that to life and make it move, etc. So the possibilities are really endless in terms of what we can do with it. And then in terms of music and audio generation, so it has the capability to craft unique music. If you wanted to create some fun birthday songs or fun ways to communicate, you can do so as well, just with a bit that play and discover. But also we can create specific audio for maybe our new product development that we've got, our new product demo. I can create a custom song or a custom score that is specific to that, which again, I would never be able to do before. So we can look at background scores, we can look at music composition. We've played around with doing like our 10th birthday song. And we can also look at like restoring audio or doing voice as well. So I'm about to show you a little video that uses both video and audio together. But just on that audio piece, I can now speak into certain AI tools, and it'll create me an email by me speaking to it. I can actually speak to through ChatGPT, for example. It's got the speech AI where I can speak to it, and it can give me responses back, and I can use it. I've actually I tried to use it as a bit of a life coach, and then my wife came down the stairs actually and said, you need to get friends, because all you're doing is spending half your time speaking to this your AI life coach. So there's the option to speak to something and get a response back in a voice, but there's also the option to take my voice and change that voice and to make it into something else. So again, if we're looking at HR departments and onboarding, I can now totally personalize something to an individual. So if somebody likes to get their information with lots of detail, they can get that. If they want fun, energetic, straight to the point, they can get that. If they want to hear it in a different language, they can get that. So that allows our personalization to really advance quite a lot to where we've been in the past. And yeah, I've been playing around with different tools, and this tool's called Synesthesia. I've basically created my own AI avatar. I basically sat for 7 minutes reading a script that it gave me. 24 hours later, it's created me my AI avatar. And then what I can then do is create a script where it can basically speak. So this is just to give you a bit of an example of what this looks like. And just to be clear, I have just given it some words. I have not recorded this. This is all done digitally and is all done by AI.
Hello? I'm Jordan's AI avatar. Just to make you aware, Jordan has never recorded this video or said these words. The only thing Jordan has done is record himself speaking a pre-generated script at the camera for 7 mins to create me, his AI avatar. One day I may be better than Jordan at speaking, and in all honesty, that wouldn't be hard, but for now I sound like a Scottish celebrity who has been in America too long. So let's talk about why innovation is crucial.
So just going back to that, hopefully I can't hear you, but hopefully he's had a laugh, and I can't see you, so hopefully there were smiles on your faces. But I think you can just start to see the possibility of that. Okay, the voice is off, the voice isn't great, but again, that was, I recorded that 3 months ago. I've played around with it a wee bit more, the voice has got better. There's other tools out there where the voice might be really good. So imagine this now where we've got an organization that's international, and I could have the CEO record the 7-minute video. And now for everyone who joins the organization, whether you wherever you are in the world and whatever your language is, I can now make that custom to that individual, and I can put it in their language as well. That's quite powerful, and I think it creates that great personalization. Or again, for content creation, we can start to create content by using this. This has obviously been fun and playful, but there's good use cases of how it can be used. And my wife actually said that the mannerisms and everything in it were very similar to me. But yeah, the voice was a bit scary, and also was maybe the eyes just staring down your soul. But really, sort of, I'm not going to go into this in too detail, but I just want to show you that, AI can really support us in multiple ways. So there's, we can support in marketing, support in sales and customers, can support in HR and people, can create support in product and service development, and then operational and strategy as well. But then start to look at all the other things it can do. Like we can do customer segmentation, we can do content creation, we can do ad targeting. This is in the marketing sense. Some of these tools, we may have had to have multiple tools that we're spending thousands of pounds on, where we could actually create our own tool that will be able to do that, because it's our data that is being pulled in from various sources. Or again, that personalization from sales and customers, where I can give a personalized recommendation because I now know that Jordan has bought five Nike trail trainers over the last year, and most likely is doing running. Well, I can start to create things that are more personalized. So when I first go on that chat to speak to Nike, they say, "Hey Jordan, how's your running going?" That instantly has built up a bit of a relationship with me, which is then going to make my relationship and brand relationship I have with that organization a lot stronger. And then again, just from an operational and strategy perspective, it can also help with strategic thinking. For maybe some people that we live in a fast-paced world, so whether you have support from a senior leadership team or whether it's just you on your own or even a co-founder, using AI as some way to bounce ideas off of, or to put your thoughts down on paper and get it to analyze that is very useful, and I find that useful for myself, and we've been finding that really useful for senior leaders inside organizations too. But yeah, just really on the benefits of using AI in the workplace. So it helps boost productivity and efficiency. That word's been floated about, and some people have been saying, does it? And in some use cases it does, and in some use cases it doesn't. And I think it's a wee bit about going back to, excuse me, about going back to this play and discover phase. Is if we don't play and discover with the tools, how are we going to know if it actually does boost our productivity? How are we going to know if it does make things more efficient? Or actually, is it just a different way of working as well? So I think there's definitely to make sure that we are playing with the tools so that we can see if what the benefits can be. And again, it can enhance decision making. That 100% is true. I just used that example there where I may have some thoughts. I may want to run that by, say, our CEO, or even with our team. It can help me get my thinking right, and I can ask it questions, whether that's through voice or I can ask it questions via text, and it's going to give me and help me build up my decision making. But one thing that we've seen in some of our surveys and reports is that it actually gets you to do things quicker. So when you start to see that you can almost that play and discover of the tool, you start to see that, oh, I'm going to use that. I'm going to start using this tool to do something. And it almost, certain tasks that you have in your day, you put off, and you put off because you think of the workload that's involved in them, or you put them off because for you, depending on that task, it just might not excite you. It might just not be what you want to do. But actually, I found that using AI actually helps that, and does really help speed that up. And then there's competitive advantage. So if we are using this inside an organization as a whole, then it will be a competitive advantage. Or if you are using it inside your organization and others aren't, I can tell you that you already have a competitive advantage over others in your department. But what I would say is we want to try and bring everyone up to a similar level. So if you are not using it right now, I would highly recommend that you do. And if you are using it, I would start sharing what you're doing with others to bring them up to a similar level as well. And really just touching on why organizations aren't using AI. So there's probably a lot about the resistance to change and job safety. I think this comes about when there's any sort of new technology. If I'm being honest, from using it over the last couple of years and now working with organizations, there's some roles that are going to be affected. That there's no doubt about that. So I think if you, again, looking at this more strategically, is we need to, senior leaders inside the organization need to identify whose roles are going to be affected. And so what else can we get them to do? It's not about job losses. What else can they do? Can they use AI to their advantage, and that's part of their role? Or can we upskill them and move them into different areas of the business? Because there's some roles that will be definitely highly impacted by AI. But I would say that is probably a small amount of roles, and I think that has always happened in our as technology has advanced. We've always seen a resurgence of different roles. For example, a web developer that never existed before, and someone's job was something different. Now they're a web developer. So there's the advancement there, but I do think there is a serious part that senior leaders inside the organization do need to make sure that once we identify what that tool is that we think is going to benefit our organization, who are the people that are affected, and how can we help and support them? Then there's the lack of skills and knowledge gap. So we're finding a lot of this, that I was talking about critical mindset. There's a skill set there, but really a lot of people have just went on and played with ChatGPT and used it like Google. They don't really know how to use it and to craft it best into their day-to-day tasks, and also how to get a practical use out of it. One thing there is to consider as well is about the digital carbon footprint of it. So we're still a bit too early in terms of knowing what the impact is from an environmental impact. But I think it's just really about being conscious about what tools you're using. So don't use 30 tools. 30 tools are obviously that's the same as using 30 web browsers. Obviously, that's going to, require power. Obviously, that's going to have an impact on your carbon footprint. So again, you maybe only want to have a couple of tools that you want to be using. And again, if you're early on that journey and sustainability is something that you're focused on, we are at Connect3. We're a B Corp, and I'm very conscious that as a B Corp, we're talking about AI, but internally what we're doing is we're trying to actually look at why are we using it, what is it going to be used for, and start to measure what the impact could be as well. And also just on that is even just to start asking AI, like, what is the impact this would have on me using it? How does this compare to using Microsoft Outlook? How does this compare to me searching for something in Google? And that can also help with that. Then we've got the technology overwhelm. If anyone's, if for those of you that are in the room that have been following all the news of AI, there is something new every single day, and it's, for me that loves exploring this and has a real interest. It's overwhelming for me, so it's going to be overwhelming for others. So let's just take that into consideration and just really start from the basics there as well. And then there's a data and privacy concerns, but I would say that more and more as the technology is advanced, that those concerns are becoming less within inside an organization, purely because now we're getting to a place where, for example, ChatGPT, so OpenAI, have now brought in with ChatGPT that there's the business account, and it's got inside the business account, which they have two versions, a Teams and Enterprise, and inside then it doesn't learn from any of the model doesn't learn from any of the history or the data that you're putting in there, and it also you can have it where it's just learning from your files, and it is only pulling out from your data. It's not pulling it from other data across the world. So take that into consideration, that hasn't moved on quite a lot, but there is still that concern that we need to have from a governance perspective. I'm just conscious of my time, so I would like to get a lot of questions if possible, but really, like lead the way and don't get left behind. Like, I think what's great to see is it really is taking about 1 to 4 months for people to start adopting AI. We just worked with an organization that has advanced quite quickly over the last, it's probably they started in mid-January, and it's now mid-March, and we're coming to the end of it, and they've got some really good successes out of that. And not only that, their people have been upskilled in the process. So it isn't taking long to adopt, and actually that impact and the return on investment is massive. So do start exploring it if you aren't exploring it already. Senior leaders, executives are really optimistic about it, especially on that productivity piece. And when we think about the productivity, is not only about productivity from a profitability perspective that probably most executives might be looking at it. There's also that piece where we're getting people to actually start doing things a bit differently, and getting people to actually do things that maybe they don't necessarily choose to or like to do, but we can still get them to do it, and we can still get them to touch on that. Then that increases productivity overall. And then just very quickly in terms of what we're doing at Connect3. So we're using AI for marketing and copy content creation. I'm finding it really great for tender proposals and bid writing. So not only using it for the current grants or bids that I'm writing, but also looking back at historic ones and trying to take that information and pre-populate, some of the information I'm looking to put into those tender proposals. You may well see that as well for example, Public Contract Scotland. They just recently brought out a few months back that you can use AI when you're creating tender bids. You can either let them know that you are using it, or you let them that you're not. The reality is everyone's going to be using it at some point. It's just going to be it's today's Grammarly, but it's going to be like tomorrow's Word document. Microsoft Suite, sorry. So yeah, and then client proposals, we're using it for that. And then we're using like in-person and virtual meetings where we're using note takers. So we use a note taker called Fathom that sits in on a call, on a virtual call, and takes the notes. And then we have an output that we want it to look like afterwards. So that's great for board meetings. That's great for general catch-ups. It's great for giving action points afterwards. And again, it's also quite good for accountability as well, where you can say to somebody, no, you said you were going to do that in the meeting, and they go, oh, did I? And you say, yeah, watch it, or here, it tells you this. So it's quite interesting that way as well. And then we have new team processes, using it for that, and then speeding up different workflows. And what we're exploring a wee bit more of is really about how can we use it for our asset library and workflows to make things quicker? Can we create internal agents? So again, like I said before about not asking the human, maybe we can just ask the agent something to get a quicker response that we're looking for, and also not disrupt somebody else from their day-to-day. We're doing upskilling training for our team. Not only do that for organizations, but we're continuously doing that learning and development internally on this on it, and exploring our strategy and roadmap as well, which is super key. We will be sharing these decks with you so you have them, but here's a little action plan that I would like you to sort of look at and maybe take away. So really it's to think about how we're using AI at work. What's your biggest wins? What are your challenges? What opportunities do you have? What's the potential benefits? What risks do you see? What steps will you take next? And then what support do you maybe need? This is a great way just to get your thoughts down and really not rush into something. So whether you're using it, then it's great to use, or whether you're not using any AI tools, it might allow you to just really think about it and define what you are looking for. And then we have, as I said, if you want to take a little screenshot of this or get your cameras out, you can do so. We have our Workplace AI, which has weekly AI updates, workplace AI tools. We've got closed groups in there. We've got lunch and learns and webinars. And we've also got our toolkit that sits within that community, but you can download that toolkit separately. And that's got a policy template that you can use to have a policy. It's got prompt engineering guides in there to sort of craft the right prompts. It's also got how to use AI in your departments, and we've also got great resources in there from the Scottish AI Alliance also. And just before questions, just really fast, there's just key takeaways is to be an early adopter and to play and see the opportunities or challenges. I don't think you can really know what it can do unless you start playing with it. And you may well see that there is challenges, or this doesn't work, or you may well see that there's massive opportunities. Please remember that Gen AI is a tool. It needs human input. Just now, there are some bits that might not need that, but really right now, and probably for a lot of things that we do, it needs human input. And also just pick one. If you've not started on anything, pick one app to start with. There's a lot out there. Just pick one and play with it. I would recommend using ChatGPT just because it has lots of different functionalities, and you have custom GPTs in that almost act as other AI platforms or other AI agents. So that would be a recommendation there. Start to look at developing your team to be critical thinkers. Keep an eye out on your digital carbon footprint. We have to be conscious of that for any technology. And also look at getting a policy in place. Like, people in your team are using it, so make sure that whether you can influence that inside your organization, or you can share the toolkit with somebody who can influence that. I highly recommend that gets in place. And also just be really conscious of your data and the future this can have on people moving forward. The technology is amazing. I'm very optimistic about it. I can see the great possibilities, but at the end of the day, our data and people there's going to be a compromise there, and that's something we really need to be conscious of moving forward. And that's me. So just if anyone has any questions, either feel free to come off mute, raise your hand, and then we can take you off mute. Or alternatively, if you want to put some of those questions into the chat, we can have a look at that, and I can answer them also.
So Jordan, thank you very much for that great insight. Really interesting. This comes up quite a bit, and within the Q&A we've had Andrew has posted a question around ethical issues. We hear that quite a bit, I suppose, in the media when people talking about AI. But do you see any ethical issues with or concerns utilising these kind of tools to generate content like video, audio, emails? And I know you were kind of getting to that just at the end there when you spoke about data, but any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think, there's the data aspect, which we need to be super conscious of, right? Because I could argue that so one thing that I do think that's really interesting about AI is because the advancement of technology has came so quickly, that is actually it's probably allowing us to stop and go, oh, hold on here. We need to make sure that are we doing the right things? But actually, for some of the technology we've had before, we've never done that. So I think it's because it's gradually came into our life. So take Microsoft, for example. Do we really know what Microsoft's doing with their data? Do we really know what for Apple, for majority, or Samsung, for mobiles, that they're doing with their data? We don't really know that, but it's actually great that it's given us that stop to think, how is this being used? So I think having more overview of the data is key, but I think it's about how are you sharing that? What are you sharing out there? But as I said, from a data perspective, there is more. Ultimately, the big players are not going to see success, right? So OpenAI is not going to see success if it doesn't protect organizations' data, because ultimately it's organizations there's going to be their bigger hitters. Individuals using it isn't really going to be where they're going to make their biggest investment. So the data piece, I think the sustainability side of things in terms of our people, so concentrating on our people, I think we need to be really conscious of that from the ethics behind that. But I still think the first thing to do is get people using it to then see what that possibilities are. And actually, maybe you might find there's people start changing their roles organically based on using the technology. And then again, in that sustainable side and more in the environment, I think it's key and conscious that we look at that. But again, not just AI or the tools or ChatGPT, for example, and its data centers. Let's look at Microsoft, like how much, what's the carbon footprint for Microsoft? We've never probably went and done that. We never thought about that. So again, it's a great opportunity to not just look at AI across the board and the ethics behind it, but also just technology that we're using inside the workplace, and really think about what is it doing, or how is it going to make an impact. Hopefully that makes answers that.
Thank you. Just remind everybody, if we've got a few minutes left, so if you'd like to either post a question or if you raise your hand, we'll take you off mic, and certainly make sure that. Oh, there's another one coming in. I'll just publish that. So this is from Derek. What do you see as the knowledge and skills which today's young people in schools, colleges and universities will need and should develop before joining the workforce and potentially starting businesses of their own to adapt to the possibilities and pitfalls of using generative AI? Are the same critical thinking skills needed to take advantage also the ones to avoid risks of misinformation? I'll just publish that.
Yeah,
so you can see it for yourself.
I think in short, it's that sort of critical mindset, strategic thinking, I think is very key. If I'm being honest about myself, I probably took a lot of that skill set that I have as an entrepreneur and has developed over, or maybe as natural to me as I am. I think back at times where I used to just, the wee skirtings that used to be in between your carpets, I used to go to my granny's and just start removing them and then taking them off and building them back again. But that builds up problem solving, that's building up creativity. So I think for young people it's probably less of the theory of it and actually more about the practical side and actually getting hands-on and more on that project basis, which, I've got a little boy who's 5, and every day he comes back and says, what have you done today? And he says, drawing, Dad, and his drawing's actually really great. Ask him if he's done any maths or English or anything like that. He probably has, but he doesn't come back and saying it. And I started really thinking about that and saying, like, why am I wanting them to do that? Because actually, I would probably want them to have more of that play and discovery time, and I'm really being creative than, because that's going to give them bigger possibilities and create that critical thinking, strategic thinking over time, albeit he's only 5-year-old, than I'm being taught a certain framework and a certain way of working. Why can he not create that way of working? And again, with AI, if the person knows how to use it, they can craft it in their own way and use it to their own ability. So yeah, I think it's just really key for young people is about that. I'm using the word play and discover, right? But I think it is about that play and discover and really having that creative, building out creative mindsets and that strategic thinking, so that we've got critical thinkers that can do that, because ultimately that's the best use case of AI. And I've started noticing that with and that's not also young people as well. We easily target young people when we think about that, but there's also skills gap on all levels, and that's not just for what we might think young people and older people, for example. That skills gap is in what we deem as technology advanced, Gen Z, that's there, millennials, that's there, and that's people that have been brought up with technology. That is still, there's still a massive critical thinking skills gap there. So for me, just in short with that, yeah, I think creative, critical, strategic thinking is really key, and trying to instill that in our young people as much as possible.
I think on that point you raised there, Jordan, not just around young people. I think for any business, particularly if they're looking at adopting use of this type of technology, understanding the skills that are required. I know you're just mentioning that there as part of Derek's question, and you spoke about critical mindset. I suppose half the battle is identifying the skills that exist within your existing workforce. That if you are looking for someone to take a bit of a lead in this, or as you spoke about at the start, play around with it and understand how it could be used within a business, that'd be key. Do you have much experience of seeing businesses looking from within to identify who can maybe take a lead in this type of?
Yeah, we're currently, so we do little programs. I'm not giving a boost here about Connect3 in terms of what we do, but yeah, organizations, we've got, so one organization we're working with, they're probably a wee bit further. They've identified their group, they had their working group, that they've got sort of their pilot group, and they realized that AI was a massive area of the business that they wanted to concentrate on. It's actually one of their key OKR pillars at their goals, for their business goals. So they've aligned that. They've set out and said, AI is going to be basically what changes this organization. They've then created a bit of a pilot group, but now that pilot group are going off. They've had a bit of upskilling. They then brought us in to take another group to then start basically discovering what they've learned, what we're learning and teaching. And you've got another group, and then eventually the whole idea is that we upskill everybody in the organization. So probably identifying, say, maybe I'd say maximum of like 8 to 10 people in the organization, depending on your size. That might be 4 people would be a great mix, and getting them as a little group and getting them to basically, whether that's self-play and discover learning, or whether that's then with a consultant or facilitated, that'll then help them understand where the possibilities are. But ultimately, it's also a wee bit about just really identifying what is the task, like what is it? Because sometimes, again, it's not just AI that is the solution. I was on a call before this, and the client had an issue with AI and was trying to say, well, I'm probably going to need a custom AI solution. And I said, actually, see, if you go back a step, all it really requires you to do is duplicate a file and put it in a different location. So sometimes it's about going back the way, and it might just be some different ways of working, or different applications, or different people that need to do things that boost their productivity or boost efficiency in that role. And it doesn't always necessarily have to be AI as well.
Okay, thank you. Just a couple of minutes left, folks. So any other questions, if you don't mind posting them. But we've had another one come in there, Jordan from Scott, who is working with the civil engineering contractor and very much at the start of the AI journey. And Scott's just asking, I suppose quite a few people will be thinking the same thing here. If we're to engage with yourselves at Connect3 to provide support with that kind of AI implementation, what exactly would that support look like?
Yeah, so we can do that in a few different ways. So we can do that in a one day. So we'd come in, basically upskill a group of people in one day in terms of basically taking them on a longer journey of what this was. And then it's more about identifying what are the tasks, the opportunities, the risks, facilitated workshop basically, and what are the tasks that we feel as an organisation individuals would help that they don't like doing or pass to others, etc. And then the next phase of that is then as an organisation identifying those tasks to say we're going to pick them and let's try and find the solution. So that next step can either be that those that are inside the organization can go on that journey that we can help support them with, that allows them to play and discover and really find out the solution. Or there's that piece where we can just come in and say, for example, create a custom ChatGPT bot or create a custom automated workflow. There's sort of a bit of a pick and choose there that you can do. So there's the training and development of using AI, the tools, the mindset, what is required, etc. And with the end of that we've upskilled our people into a nice place, but we know maybe the direction that we're going to go in and what our strategy is. And then there's that other piece that we can come in where we can support your people in developing that tool, or alternatively we can do that for you. And on the engineering front as well, we're actually working with an engineering firm. So if that helps, Scott.
Thank you, Jordan. I'm not seeing any other questions coming in. Again, just like to thank you so much for your time today and for all the advice, guidance, insight you've provided. Hopefully everyone on here today has found that useful.